There are moments in life when everything goes silent, not around you, but inside you. It's the kind of silence that makes you question your worth, your direction, your faith, even your identity. And you wonder why the God who promised to stay close suddenly feels distant, as if heaven has dimmed its light and left you walking through a valley with no map. That quiet ache that presses against your chest, the prayers that feel like they evaporate before they reach anywhere sacred. The nights where your own thoughts echo louder than any voice of hope. It's strange how the very seasons that break you open are the same ones that shape you. Strange how emptiness can feel like punishment when it may actually be preparation. Because sometimes God doesn't speak when you want him to speak. He speaks when you're ready to hear. Sometimes he allows the breaking not because he's cruel, but because the vessel you once were can't hold what he's preparing to pour. You call it abandonment, but heaven calls it alignment. You call it losing everything, but heaven calls it clearing space. You think the collapse is a curse, but God whispers, "This is where I begin." You've carried so much, haven't you? Carried responsibilities that were never yours, carried wounds that were never healed, carried expectations that were never fair. Here is the truth you've needed but were afraid to believe. This is not punishment, this is preparation. Your pain is not proof of God's absence, it's evidence of his investment in you. The silence you're experiencing is not neglect, it's calibration. It's the delicate work of a father shaping a child for a purpose, too heavy for who they used to be. Your dark night of the soul is not the end of your faith. It is the soil where deeper faith grows. What hurts now is what heals you later. What confuses you now is what crowns you later. What empties you now is what elevates you later. You see the ending, but he sees becoming. You see the breaking, but he sees the blessing being carved out of the cracks. You see the silence, but he sees the moment your spirit will finally be soft enough to hear him. God is not done with you. He has not forgotten you. He has not turned his face away. You are not being buried. You're being planted. And this season, this deep, quiet, painful season, is the doorway through which your purpose will walk. We all know what it feels like to hold on to things that hurt us, to cling to people or identities or memories long after they've stopped being home. We hold on because letting go feels like losing control. We grip tightly because we're afraid that if we loosen our hands, life will fall apart. We stay in places where our soul is starving because familiarity feels safer than freedom. But what if the very things we cling to are the things blocking what God is trying to give us? What if the spiritual disconnect you feel is not a sign that you're broken, but a sign that God is breaking something off you? There are truths, deep, spiritual, cosmic truths that shape the journey of the chosen ones. Truths that don't make sense until life bruises you enough to teach you what textbooks can. Today. You'll walk through 5 divine modules, each revealing a layer of spiritual pain, inner transformation, and hidden purpose. Each one is a mirror to the parts of yourself you've been wrestling with. And by the end, you'll see that everything you thought was falling apart was actually falling into alignment. This journey is not about surviving suffering. It's about discovering the purpose inside it. It's about realizing that God's silence is not a rejection. It is the sacred pause before revelation. It's about understanding that being chosen doesn't feel glorious, feels lonely, confusing, and often unbearably quiet. Yet it is in that quiet that God shapes the soul strongest. Stay with me. By the time you reach the final line, you will no longer see your pain as the enemy. Yes. You will see it as the beginning of your calling. The first thing the chosen cling to is control. You don't do it because you're stubborn. You do it because life taught you early on that losing control meant getting hurt. So you tried to control outcomes, conversations, relationships, timelines, even God's timing. You told yourself, if I hold everything together, nothing will fall apart. But that belief was a lie that disguised itself as self-protection. Control becomes a shield you hold in front of your heart, hoping it can keep the unpredictability of life away. But here's the hardest truth. Control is the biggest illusion God has to break, not because he wants you powerless, but because he wants you available. And you cannot be available to divine purpose if your hands are too busy gripping what God is trying to remove. You cannot step into destiny when your fists are closed around fear. God's silence often begins right where your control ends. It's not the silence of abandonment, it's the silence of recalibration. Think of a seed. For it to grow, it must first be buried, covered, pressed into darkness where nothing feels alive. The seed cannot control the soil, the timing, the rain, the sunlight. It can only surrender. And in its surrender, it becomes something it could never be above the ground. You are that seed. And this season is the sacred burial that precedes the becoming. You think it means God is finished with you? But seeds disappear before they rise? There comes a moment in every chosen life where God gently, deliberately, and often painfully pries your fingers off the things you thought you needed for safety. It hurts, but it's holy, because the tighter you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. Peace doesn't come from managing everything. Peace comes from trusting that even what breaks can bless you, that even what falls apart can fall into place in ways you could never arrange. God isn't taking things away to hurt you. He's making space to bless you. When you can't hear him, it's not because he's distant. It's because you re-entering the kind of spiritual surgery that requires stillness. You can fight it or you can let him work, because the moment you stop managing your life and start allowing your life, everything begins to shift. God does his best work in surrendered hands. The second thing chosen souls cling to is the past, not because they want to live in it, but because the past has fingerprints that linger. The old wounds, the old betrayals, the old chapters that still whisper, "This is who you are." You replay scenes in your mind, trying to understand why certain people hurt you, why certain seasons crushed you, why God allowed things you never would have chosen. You think revisiting it will protect you, but all it does is imprison you. Bitterness pretends to be armor, but it's really a chain so subtle you don't realize you're dragging it. The truth is simple and devastating. You cannot heal in the same room where you were broken. You must leave that room. Even if the door closes softly behind you, even if part of you still feels tied to the version of yourself who lived there. Think of the ocean. Every tide pulls back before it returns stronger. Every release makes space for renewal. Sometimes the miracle is not in what returns, but in what leaves. God isn't trying to erase your past. He's trying to release its grip on the person you're becoming. Forgiveness isn't about denying what happened. It's about freeing yourself from what's still happening inside you. You don't heal by replaying the story. You'll heal by rewriting who you are after it. Say it gently, even if your voice trembles. I release them. I release what they did. I release who I was. Because when God chooses you, he cannot let your past define you. Its only purpose can. We cling to identities the same way we cling to familiar pain. You hold on to who you used to be because stepping into who you were meant to become feels terrifying. Maybe life taught you to be self-reliant. Maybe trauma taught you to be silent. Maybe heartbreak taught you to be small. But God doesn't leave his chosen ones in identities built by survival. He rebuilds them into identities shaped by calling. When God removes what once defined you, it's not rejection, it's redirection. You are clay in the potter's hands. And clay does not tell the potter what it prefers to be. It simply yields. Every pressure on your life right now is shaping your purpose. Every crack is intentional. Every collapse is a calling to rise in a new form. Every silence from heaven is setting the stage for revelation. You aren't who you were, and that's the point. At some point in every chosen life, God interrupts the story you were writing, not gently, not subtly, but sharply, decisively, undeniably. You had a vision for how things were supposed to unfold, the timing, the people, the opportunities, the path. You weren't just daydreaming, you were investing, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and everything looked like it was lining up, till it wasn't. Until the door you prayed for stayed shut, until the relationship you trusted fractured, till the dream you held close fell apart in your hands. And it leaves you wondering, why would God let me build something he was going to break? Here's the truth. Few want to hear. God will let your plan fall apart when your plan is too small for your purpose. He will allow detours that feel irrational. He will close doors you were ready to walk through. He will remove people you were loyal to. He will dismantle structures you depended on. Not because he's cruel, but because he refuses to let you settle for a story that does not match the weight of your calling. Think of Abraham. He was told to go to a land God never named. No map, no destination, no clarity, just a command and faith. If Abraham demanded certainty, he would have missed destiny. God does not shape chosen ones with comfort. He shapes them with confusion that turns into clarity, with endings that turn into beginnings, with unanswered prayers that turn into protection. The moment your plan collapses is the moment heaven starts building. you are not being punished. You are being rerouted. Your disappointment is not the end of your story. It is the redirection into a story worthy of your anointing. The chosen don't walk straight lines. They walk spirals upward, unseen, guided by a hand they feel more than they see. When your plan breaks, don't panic, don't cling. Don't beg the dead to breathe again. Instead, breathe yourself, slowly, deeply. Because God is shifting the ground beneath you, not to make you fall, but to make you rise on a foundation that cannot be shaken. The life you planned is not the life heaven wrote for you. And the moment you surrender that truth, peace begins to seep back into your bones. You are not losing direction. You are being aligned. You are not being abandoned. You're being advanced. And what God builds next will fit you in ways the old story never could. This is the hardest part. It's the one nobody wants to touch. The one that hurts too much to speak out loud. Your wound, the betrayal, the abandonment, the loss, the moment that changed you, is the place God returns to last. Not because He's ignoring it, but because He is saving it for transformation. You see your wound as the place of your breaking. God sees it as the place of your becoming. There is a specific kind of pain that only chosen ones know. The pain that molds identity, the pain that cracks pride, the pain that empties the ego and softens the spirit. This pain doesn't just hurt you, it rewrites you. The dark night of the soul isn't a phase, it's a spiritual rebirth. It's the moment heaven says, cannot carry this version of yourself into your calling. And so the old you must break so the true you can rise. Think of Joseph. His brothers threw him into a pit, sold him off, stripped him of identity, family, belonging, safety. But the wound that nearly destroyed him became the stage for his purpose. His pain became the passageway to influence, compassion, and destiny. Had he never been wounded, he never would have been positioned. Your wound is not where God left you. It's where God is shaping you. Your heartbreak is not proof of divine silence. It is evidence of divine surgery. Your loneliness is not punishment. It is God removing distractions so you can finally hear Him. There will come a day when the very thing that broke you becomes the thing that blesses someone else. You will speak from a scar, not a wound. And your voice, steady and clear, will carry healing because it came from a place that nearly ended you. That is why chosen people suffer deeper. Their purpose requires depth. And when God transforms your wound, it doesn't disappear. It becomes holy ground. The place where you met Him in the dark and discovered He was never absent, He was working, quietly, thoroughly, patiently, turning the ache into anointing. There comes a moment, slow, subtle, almost imperceptible, when everything begins to shift. Not because circumstances suddenly improve, not because prayers suddenly get answered, not because the pain disappears. It shifts because you do. You stop fighting the silence. You stop fearing the unknown. You stop clinging to what left. You stop begging God for explanations and start trusting Him for direction. You stop mourning chapters that have already given you their lesson. And in that surrender, that deep exhale your soul has been holding for years, grace walks in, quietly, tenderly, almost shyly, like a dawn that doesn't want to startle the night. And you feel something inside you release. It's not because the battle is over, but because you finally understand that God has been fighting for you the whole time. When you stop wrestling with the collapse, you begin to see the construction. When you stop replaying the loss, you begin to feel the healing. When you stop defining yourself by what hurt you, you begin to rise in who you're meant to be. This is the miracle. God turns pain into purpose by changing the one thing that matters most to you. He turns fear into faith. He turns confusion into clarity. He turns heartbreak into depth. He turns loneliness into intimacy with Him. He turns silence into revelation. And when you finally let go of control, the past, the old identity, the broken plan, the wound, something breathtaking happens. Your spirit aligns with heaven. Peace doesn't just visit, it stays. It becomes your home again. You begin to understand why certain people left, why certain prayers stayed unanswered, why certain seasons dried up, why certain doors never opened, why God's silence was necessary. You begin to realize it was never about losing. It was about making room for more. Every unanswered prayer was protection. Every delay was direction. Every betrayal was redirection. Every heartbreak was cleansing. Every silence was preparation. And you stand there, maybe still healing, maybe still unsure, but no longer broken like before. You stand with a steadiness that can't be explained, a clarity that wasn't taught, a strength that wasn't learned, a peace that wasn't earned. It was given, gifted, placed inside you by a God who knew exactly what he was doing. You made it here not by accident, not by luck, not by coincidence, but by divine choreography. You may not see the full purpose yet, but you feel the shift. You feel the alignment. You feel the rising. You feel the quiet conviction that everything you went through had intention. Nothing wasted, nothing random, nothing forgotten. The dark night didn't destroy you, it revealed you. And now heaven whispers, I can use you now. You can't fill a full cup, and now that your cup is empty, watch what God pours in. Not the crumbs you once chased, not the attention you once begged for, not the validation you once needed, but the abundance that was always meant for you. The kind that flows without force, the kind that fits without fear, the kind that aligns without anxiety. The kind heaven reserves for the chosen. You walked through the valley, but you didn't stay there. You faced the darkness, but it did not claim you. You were broken, but not beyond repair. You were silenced, but not abandoned. You were stripped of what you thought you needed so you could receive what you were truly made for. This was never punishment. It was preparation. It was the slow, holy work of a God who saw more in you than you saw in yourself. It was proof that even your breaking was part of your becoming. So breathe, release, open your hands. Let the last fragments of the old story fall away. You are safe now. And what's meant for you, the love, the purpose, the clarity, the calling, is already on its way. Walk forward with confidence. Not because you know every step, but because you now trust the one guiding them. You are chosen. You are carried. You are transformed. And you are ready.